Stories from my coaching experience. Hello, friends. My name is Andrew. You are watching the channel Swim from Zero. In today's video, I would like to share several real stories from my teaching and coaching experience. These stories are educational and may help you better understand the process of learning to swim. Story 1. The Boy Who Was Afraid of Water. The first story is about a boy who sat on a bench for a long time and simply could not enter the water. I mentioned this story briefly in one of the first lessons. First of all, I would like to thank his mother for her patience. The swimming course consisted of 32 to 36 lessons. During the first month, we had 3 lessons per week, so about 12 lessons in total. For almost the entire first month, the boy just sat on the bench. He was afraid to enter the water. In the shower, he would wet everything except his head. When he came to the pool, he was shy and quiet. We greeted each other, but he always stayed on the bench. Whenever I asked him to enter the water, he refused. Sometimes he even wanted to leave the pool, but I asked him to stay and watch the other children. I hoped that seeing his peers swimming would gradually spark his interest. And that is exactly what happened. After about a month, he finally stepped into the water for the first time. While other children were already swimming independently, this boy was just beginning to get used to the water. But because there was no pressure, and because of the patience of both the coach and his mother, he eventually began doing the exercises. He put on his swimming goggles and started practicing the first movements. Step by step, he learned his first swimming exercises. So again, thanks to the mother for her patience and to the boy himself for his courage. Story 2. My First Coaching Success. The second story happened during the early years of my coaching career. At that time, I was a young coach and a recent university graduate. I had theoretical knowledge and my own experience as a swimmer, but I had very little experience teaching children. This was in the mid-1990s. One of the fathers of a girl who trained in my group asked me if his daughter could learn to swim by the end of the course. Their family was planning to move to the south of the country, to places like Sochi, Anapa, or Yalta, where there is the sea. So she needed to learn to swim. The girl was 7 years old, very thin and fragile, but very disciplined and calm. She followed instructions carefully. Her father was a strict man and also a former athlete. He told me that if his daughter learned to swim by the end of the course, he would thank me for it. He was even ready to reward me in advance. But honestly, at that moment I wasn't sure if my coaching experience would be enough. However, by the end of the course, the girl did learn to swim. The program included freestyle and backstroke up to the middle of the pool. The final test was swimming 25 meters without stopping in full coordination, freestyle, and backstroke. For most of the course, she trained only in the shallow part of the pool. She was still afraid of the deep water. Her father met her after every lesson and always asked about her progress. Then, 2 lessons before the end of the course, she finally swam the full distance in the deep water. This small, fragile girl swam 25 meters. For me, it was a huge moment of joy and an important milestone in my coaching career. That success gave me confidence to continue my work as a coach and teacher. After that moment, whenever parents asked me if their child would learn to swim by the end of the course, I could confidently answer, yes, of course. I can teach any child, and even adults, to swim during these lessons. Story 3. When People Start Drowning. The next story is about situations that sometimes happen in pools when people begin to drown. Children often get into trouble because they don't yet understand what deep water really means. Adults sometimes get into trouble because of overconfidence or carelessness. This story also happened early in my coaching career. At that time, I was still a student and worked as an evening instructor in a pool where families came for recreational swimming. In those days, before entering the water, everyone had to do a warm-up. I stood in front of the group and demonstrated exercises. People warmed up their shoulders, hips, and legs, increased their heart rate, warmed their muscles, and only then they could enter the water. Today, things are different. People often just pay, come in, and start swimming without any guidance. Back then, we actually taught people exercises and basic swimming skills. The rescue incident. During one session, I was teaching a child in the shallow part of the pool. If you imagine the pool layout, there were 6 lanes. I was on the shallow side, and diagonally across the pool, in the deep water on the 6th lane, 2 large women were swimming. Later, I learned they were pediatric doctors who came to swim in the evening. Suddenly, I heard someone shouting that they were drowning. I looked up and saw splashing and arms waving in the water. The 2 women were pulling each other down, trying to climb on top of one another to breathe. They were actually drowning each other. Instead of diving in immediately, I grabbed a rescue pole nearby and extended it toward them. One of them grabbed the pole. I pulled her to the side. Then I helped the second one as well. Later, we found out what had happened. They had pushed off the wall while playing in the water and tried to float on their backs. One of them arched her back and accidentally went downward into deeper water. With her eyes closed, she lost orientation. She couldn't tell where the surface was. She began swimming deeper instead of upward. The second woman tried to help her, but the drowning swimmer climbed on top of her, pushing her underwater. And so they began pulling each other down like floats. Fortunately, I reached them in time. After they recovered and caught their breath, they thanked me and even joked that I should bring my children to their clinic without waiting in line. Safety in swimming pools. Over time, with more coaching experience, I encountered many situations like this. Children sometimes swallow water, even in the shallow part, but there they can stand up and recover quickly. But when something happens in the deep part of the pool, the coach must act immediately. Coaches and instructors often have to dive underwater to help a child or an adult. Fortunately, lane ropes can help because a swimmer can grab onto them instead of needing to be dragged all the way to the wall. Other pool accidents. Sometimes accidents happen outside the water. Children run on wet tiles in the shower area, slip, and fall. Sometimes they jump from starting blocks incorrectly or play around on the diving platforms. There are many stories like that. Final thoughts. I could tell many more stories, but I will stop here for today. I hope the lessons I publish are useful for you. Ask questions in the comments. Your questions help me choose topics for future videos. We have already covered the main swimming techniques and strokes. Next, we will move more into practical training and swimming sessions in the water. I also plan to film more demonstrations in real swimming pools, so the lessons will be clearer and more interesting to watch. I wish you all the best in your training. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on Swim from Zero. My name is Andrew. Goodbye, and see you soon.